Hey there, here to help you with adding and subtracting fractions and adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Now I'm going to teach these at the same time because they use the same skills, pretty interchangeably. So the first rule when it comes to adding and subtracting fractions, every time that we solve a problem in the class, I always make sure the students do this. We need to check to make sure the denominators are the same. If the denominators are not the same, if they're not equal, you cannot add or subtract the fraction or mixed number in its current state. You'll need to do something else that will be a 5th grade standard. Actually, I take that back. We'll actually be doing it later this week, but I'll get there. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So all of these examples, I want to make sure I have these same denominators. I need to make sure I'm adding tenths and tenths, fifths and fifths, sixths and sixths. I can't add two pieces that are different sizes. They need to be equal sizes. So tenth and tenths, tenth and tenths, tenths and tenths, yep. Ninths and ninths, yep. 11ths and 11ths, yes. So first thing you're checking, are those denominators the same? If they are not the same, you need to stop and do something else. But for now, because they're all the same, we can move on to step 2, which is just add or subtract the numerators. That's all you have to do. You're just looking at the numerators and do the operation that's in the middle. So for 3 tenths plus 4 tenths, that would be, well, 7 is going to be in the numerator. Now I have my denominators. Let's see, I'm adding 3 tenths and I'm adding 4 tenths. Well, would that make sense to go to 20ths? It wouldn't, because 20ths would be a bunch of smaller pieces. We're keeping the same size pieces, so the denominator stays the same. So this one would be 7 tenths. So when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we need to do 3 things. Are the denominators the same? Yes. Add or subtract the numerators? Easy. Keep the denominator the same? Double easy. And you get your solution. In this case, the sum of 3/4 plus 4/4 is 7/4. So now we have subtraction. I'm going to go through the same process again. Are my denominators the same? Ninths. Yep, they're the same. So now I just need to look at my numerators and do whatever operations in between them. So I'm going to do 7 minus 3. Well, that would be 4. And since I'm dealing with ninths, I'm going to stay with ninths. I keep the denominator the same, so that would be 4 ninths. And then the last one, again, are my denominators the same? Let's see, 11 and 11. Good, ready to move on. Now I have 8 plus 2, which would be 10. And I'm going to keep my denominator the same, which is 11. Adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, easy. Kids get it quick. Very easy skill. Now, let's move on to mixed numbers. Now, my suggestion is to always solve these vertically. Stack them on top of each other, keeping the fractions on top, whole numbers on top of each other as well. And it just makes it much easier than when it's horizontal. It's kind of hard to line things up. Now, I'm going to solve these, but before I do, I'm going to go back to a simpler problem. And that would be something like 36 plus 49. Now, when we solve 36 plus 49, we always start with the ones. We start with the ones because you may need to regroup. If I was to start with the tens and then go back to the ones, well, if I need to regroup, I run into a problem. So we always start with the right side of the problem. Whatever that rightmost place value is the one that we start with. It's no different with mixed numbers. So students are used to starting with the ones. However, now that we're in fractional parts, well, that's no longer the rightmost place value. We're starting with as far right as we can. So we're going to start with the fractions. And we're going to do the same thing as before. We need to make sure those 3 things. Denominators the same. If they are, then we can add the numerators, keep the denominators the same. So I have 3 1/4 plus 2 1/4, and plus 2 2/4. Denominators the same? Yes, they are. So now I'm just going to add my numerators. 1 plus 2, well, that would be 3. My denominator is going to stay the same. It's going to be 4ths. Now I just add the whole numbers. So now I'd have 5 3/4. Next one. Are my denominators the same? Yep. So I just need to add the numerators. And remember, I'm starting with the fractions first. I'm starting with the right side first. Well, 2 plus 2 is 4. And then I'm sticking with fifths, because I'm adding 2 fifths and 2 fifths. Then I just need to add the whole numbers. So that would be 7. 7 and 4/5. Subtraction, gonna do the same thing, except this time I'm subtracting. My denominator's the same. Yeah, I have 7s. So now I just subtract the numerators. 6 minus 3, well that would be 3. And I'm sticking with 7ths. So now I just need to subtract the whole numbers. 7 minus 3, well that would be 4. And now the last one, I threw in a little bit of a wrinkle, but it shouldn't be too bad. I have 9 and 4/10, and I'm subtracting 5. Well, now I don't have a fraction here, so what does that mean? Well, if I have 4/10 and I'm not taking away anything, well then I'm just sticking with 4/10. That's that little wrinkle there. I'm just not subtracting anything, so I just bring down that fraction. And now, just subtract the whole numbers. 9 minus 5, well that would be 4. So that would be 4 and 4/10. Big thing to remember from this lesson. There's 3 things that I really want students to learn from this lesson. First thing, make sure the denominators are the same. If they're not the same, you can't add them or subtract them. Second thing, the denominator stays the same. Do not add the denominators. Do not subtract the denominators. They're staying the same. The sizes of the fraction don't change when you're adding them. It's just the amount. The numerator is the only thing that changes. Third thing, when it comes to mixed numbers, always start with the fractional part. Because once we start getting into more complicated examples where you may need to regroup when you're subtracting or adding, it just makes it so much easier when you start with the smallest part, the rightmost part, the fraction. It was just like this example. If we were to start with the 10s, it would be all confusing once we went to do 9 plus 6, 15. Oh, but what do I do with that 15 when I already have a 7 here? So we're always start with the rightmost. That's why we start with the fractional part. All right, I hope this helps, and I will see you next time.